Good morning, 346 students. I hope that this message finds you doing well, that everything is settling to some kind of routine. I know it's tough, but sometimes those routines and traditions can help stabilize at least our cognitions or the way we think to move ourselves through this thing as best we possibly can. Welcome to Monday. I hope everyone has had the opportunity or will take a few minutes today to look at the next writing assignment, which is the second in the four major autobiographical writing assignments that is on the Blackboard page as of now. This assignment will be due a week from today, April 6th. I wanted to talk a little bit about it only because there are some more details on it that makes it a little bit different than the previous autobiographical writing assignment. There won't be a peer review process this time. However, I strongly encourage you to give this a pass by someone else. It doesn't have to be another student in the class, although that would obviously be best. But you do want to do everything you can to share this with somebody to get another set of eyes on it, at least to help you understand what makes sense and what doesn't. So give that a shot. But I won't ask you to turn in anything with respect to a peer review with your final copy, which I'll look for electronically by next Monday, April 6th. Anytime between now and then is fine. Looking at the assignment itself, same space stipulations as before, minimum 5 pages, all the same margins, etc., etc. Pardon me, now into the content. There are 3 major parts. Part 1 is to describe the conditions of your upbringing, and that is I want you to locate someone in your life, perhaps a parent, a caretaker, a grandparent, an older friend or a neighbor, anyone who is a trusted source of information to interview, and ask them what the conditions of life was like at the time in which you were born, when you were very young. What was the neighborhood like? What were the economic dynamics? What were the racial dynamics? Was it a tightly knit neighborhood, or was it a neighborhood in which people didn't really know each other? And second, I need you to speculate. How do you think the conditions in which you were brought into this world affected the character you developed? Major, major keystone when we think about self-development. How do those conditions in which the self exists affect the self? That's part 1. Part 2, how was your life as an adolescent and teenager? So describe what life was like in middle school. Was your family structure the same? What about your friendship circles? Describe changes that occurred in middle school to you, and what do you attribute those changes to? Do the same thing then with life in high school. So you're going to have to revisit. Some of you wrote about this in your very first autobiographical writing assignment, but in this particular occasion, I'm asking you to dig a little bit deeper to get down to some of these issues that happened to you, both first starting in middle school and then in high school, and that's part 2. Part 3 becomes less autobiographical, although a little bit, but it becomes a little more analytical in the sense that I want you to look at the difference between chapters 3 and 4 in the book. In those chapters, there was a transition between chapters 3 and 4 in which the responsibility for the self and its development shifted from, if you remember, from divine powers, from God, to more individual notions of will and initiative. And I want you to document that transition in a couple of paragraphs. I want you to look at the actual book and write about that transition from divine, the self that is rooted in the divine, or self changes rooted in the divine, to individual will. I do want you to use sources from the book. I want you to pull out at least 5 different places where you can reliably either directly quote or just paraphrase what the author was saying. Furthermore, I want you to use APA format. I know this is a sociology class, but I'm a social psychologist, and APA is another format with which you should be familiar. If you don't know how to use APA formatting, not a big deal. Maybe you have before in the past, but if not, I put a link up under course content. If you click on it, it says APA citation sources or something to that effect. But basically, it'll lead you to a web page. I think it's Purdue University, which documents very specifically how you go about formatting an APA format. So it's an opportunity for you to learn how to use it, and if not, use it again and perfect it. Finally, in this part three, I know it's rather large, but in part three, I want you to think about, sorry, the transition in your life, looking back at your young life. At what point do you believe you made a transition from submitting to external powers? And I don't necessarily mean God at this point, but submitting to an external power to locating the power for change and self-development in the self. It's a transition we all go through. So trying to describe the events or general circumstances in which this shift from dependence and submission to external powers transition to more of a focus and a reliance on the self for development. So document that in your life. Think about this. I know that this is a little heavy, but I want you to take some time to think this through before you start really just writing it out. Little speculation, which I think is going to provide some interesting thoughts and some interesting papers, some interesting work. I hope that that's clear. If it's not clear, please send me an email. I'm happy to respond as soon as I possibly can. And, I haven't done this yet, but if you think that it would be more helpful to have some sort of a Zoom meeting, I'm happy to do that. I know that many of you have probably done that with friends and family. I certainly have. If you'd like to set something like that up, just for me to talk you through the paper, I'm happy to do that as well. Just please, again, send me a message and we can work through it. I hope everyone's doing all right. Good luck, and I'll look forward to receiving your papers. Let me know if you have questions. All right, guys. Bye.